The strongest man alive. A city was burning, buildings collapsing in on themselves, people screaming, running, looking for somewhere safe that doesn't exist anymore. A monster stands in the middle of it all, talking about humanity like it's already over. Heroes step forward and fail. Not dramatically, just not enough. Hope doesn't disappear all at once. It fades quietly, like air leaving a room you didn't realize was sealed. And then he walks in. A ball guy, he yells solo. No music, no speech, no interest, just presence. One punch, the monster disappears instantly. Dread, and there's silence. Saitama, silence. Not relief, not pride, in that moment, quiet pause after absolute power solves everything. That's what this story really means. Because we've been trained to believe the win is the payoff. That strength equals satisfaction. That if you just grind long enough, sacrifice enough, endure enough, you'll get to a place where everything finally clicks. But if you get there and it doesn't? What if the moment you thought would feel like everything feels like nothing? That's uncomfortable because it challenges the blueprint most of us are following. Work hard, level up, win, compete. But Saitama breaks that immediately. You already won. And the emotion that follows isn't fulfillment, it's emptiness. And I've had to sit with that in my own life. There are moments where everything on the outside lines up. You're doing what you're supposed to do, handling responsibilities, being dependable. People look at you like you've got it all figured out. But internally, there's a quiet question that doesn't go away. Why doesn't he sit down? I thought he would. It's not his fault. It's yours. And most people don't realize they're standing in his hands. The dream that came true. Saitama, he wasn't chosen. No prophecy, no bloodline, no destiny whispering his name, just decision. 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, 10 kilometers, every single day. No shortcuts, no hype, just repetition until he became something else. And I respect that deeply because structure will save you when motivation disappears. There were seasons in my life where everything had a mission. Wake up, execute, improve, repeat. No confusion, no identity crisis. You didn't ask who you were because your actions answered that question for you. There's peace in that, real peace. Saitama locked in on that. No distractions, no second guessing. And eventually, he broke his limiter. He reached the level people dream about. But here's the part nobody prepares you for. What happens after you become who you said you wanted to be? Because chasing a goal gives you energy, but achieving it, that can leave you face to face with silence. And not peaceful silence. The kind that makes you start asking deeper questions. When victory stops feeling good. There's a dream Saitama has. He's fighting the subterranean king, and finally, it's real. He's struggling. He's taking damage. He's laughing. There's excitement in his eyes again. He looks alive. And then he wakes up. Just a dream. Reality comes right back. And the next enemy gets erased. One punch. Again. And you feel it. The subtle drop in his energy. That quiet disappointment. That moment hit me harder than I expected. Because I've lived versions of that. You reach a place your younger you would have celebrated. Growth, stability, respect. Things you once prayed for. And you are grateful. Let's not lie about that. But there's also a whisper in the background. Is this it? And that question messes with people because it doesn't come from failure. It comes from arrival. challenge disappears, and with it, a piece of your engagement with life. And nobody really teaches you how to deal with that part. High functioning depression. Now we see Saitama at home, small apartment, TV on, arguing about grocery sales. The strongest man alive, living a life that feels emotionally small. That's not accidental writing, that's precise. Because depression doesn't always look like breaking down. Sometimes it looks like everything working. You go to work, you handle responsibilities, you show up for people, you keep moving. From the outside, solid. But internally, things feel muted. Not sad, not broken, just flat. Like life lost its color, but kept its structure. I've had seasons like that where nothing was wrong, but nothing felt fully right either. You're living, but you're experiencing life deeply. And that's a dangerous place because it's easy to ignore, easy to normalize, until one day you realize you've been on autopilot longer than you meant to be. Nobody sees him. Saitama joins the Hero Association. He dominates the physical exam. Impossible strength. But he ranks low. Why? Because popularity matters more than impact. All the flashy heroes get the applause, the recognition, the credit. But Saitama just saves lives quietly, and no one notices. And that part hit me differently as I've grown. Because leadership looks like that. When you're coaching people, mentoring, helping others grow, you celebrate their wins loudly. You make sure they're seen. But your own progress, that happens in silence. Behind the scenes. No scoreboard, no crowd, just ruthless consistency. And I had to be honest with myself here. There are moments where I felt that, where I was pouring into everything and everyone around me, but not checking if I was pouring anything back into myself. Because humans don't just need purpose. We need to feel seen. Not for validation, but for connection. And if you ignore that long enough, you start to feel invisible in your own life, even while doing everything right. Genos arrives. Then Genos shows up. And this is where things quietly start to shift. Because Genos doesn't see Saitama as boring. He sees him as truth. He listens fully. No sarcasm, no doubt, and no need for proof. Just belief. And something subtle happens. Saitama starts engaging again. Talking more, even joking. Nothing about his power changed. His environment did. Let me say that at the beginning because people overlook this. Nothing about the power changed. Connection changed everything. And that's been sitting with me because purpose isn't static. It evolves. At some point, life stops being about what you can do and starts becoming about who your strength serves. There's a shift that happens when responsibility enters your life. When guiding someone matters. When protecting something matters. When building something bigger than you matters. That's where meaning starts to come back. Not from achievement, but from direction. And I've had my own version of that moment. My son, Lincoln. He didn't just change my life emotionally. He changed the questions I asked myself. Now it's not just, what am I capable of? It's, am I building something real? Am I growing or just staying comfortable? Is this enough for the life I say I want for him? That's a different kind of pressure. Not fear, purpose. Because now, it's not just about me finding fulfillment. It's about creating a life that shows him what fulfillment actually looks like. Not just working, not just surviving paycheck to paycheck, not just being needed, but living with intention, building with clarity, growing on purpose. Because one day, he's not going to listen to what I said. He's going to watch how I lived. And that changes everything. The loneliness of strength. The Sea King shows up. Chaos again. Heroes step in, they fight, they lose badly. And you can feel it shifting. That moment where people start realizing this might not end well. And then Saitama arrives, late, calm, and unbothered. And he ends it all, instantly. One punch. But of course he does. That part's expected now. But what he does next is what matters. He lies. He downplays himself. Makes it seem like the other heroes weaken the monster first. He takes the perception hit on purpose. But why? Because he understands something most people don't. Hope matters more than credit. People needed to believe in heroes, even if it wasn't him that they believed in. So he lets them have that. And then he walks away. No applause, no recognition, no moment. Just gone. Uncelebrated, unseen, alone. That's not weakness. That's emotional weight. And that part feels real in a different way because I've noticed something in my own life. The more dependable you become, the less people check on you. Not because they don't care, but because you look like you've got it handled. You're the strong one. The one people lean on. The one who shows up no matter what. And over time, that becomes your role. But here's the truth. Strength doesn't cancel out the need for support. It just hides it better. And if you don't create spaces where you can put that weight down, you start carrying things longer than you should. Not because you have to, but because no one realizes you've been holding it for that long. And if you're not careful, you can become so used to being the one who carries everything that you forget what it feels like to be supported. And that's where strength slowly turns into isolation. Not all at once, just little by little, until you look up one day and realize you've been standing alone longer than you meant to. The existential crisis. Eventually, Saitama says it straight. Nothing excites him anymore. No fear before the fight, no adrenaline, no anticipation. Just routine, predictable outcomes. And that right there, that's the real conflict of his story. Not the monsters, not the power level. It's the disconnection. Because tension is what gives life meaning. Uncertainty, risk, growth. The possibility that things might not go your way. That's what pulls you into the experience. That's what makes you feel alive. Take that away and life becomes mechanical. Structured, predictable, controlled. You know how things are going to play out before they even begin. And at first, that feels like peace and security, like you finally figured it out. But over time, it starts to feel like something is missing. Not because life is bad, but because it stopped engaging you. And this is important to understand. This isn't laziness. This isn't you falling off. Let's kill that idea right now. This is what happens when your external life outpaces your internal evolution. When you build stability, but you don't keep growing internally to match it. And I've had to check myself on that because from the outside, everything can look right. Routine, stability, predictability. You're handling responsibilities. You're doing what you're supposed to do, being where you're supposed to be. But internally, you feel that quiet gap. So I had to ask myself something real. Am I chasing comfort or am I chasing growth? Because those two can look almost identical at first. Both require consistency. Both require discipline. But one expands your life and the other slowly shrinks it. Comfort keeps things manageable. Growth makes things meaningful. And if you're not intentional, you can build a life that works, but doesn't actually feel like you're living it. And that's the trap. Not failure, not struggle, but success that disconnects you from yourself. And that's a much harder problem to recognize because everything on the outside still looks like you're winning. The missing piece. There's a Japanese concept called ikigai, your reason for being. It lives at the intersection of four things: what you love, what you're good at, what people need, and what actually fulfills you. Where those meet, that's where meaning starts to take its shape. And when you look at Saitama through that lens, you start to see the problem a little more clearly. He has the ability, he has the impact, he can do what almost no one else can do. But he lost connection to feeling, and that's his missing piece. Because purpose isn't just about what you're capable of. It's about how connected you feel while you're doing it. And I've been thinking about that a lot in my own life. Because purpose stopped feeling like a destination, something you arrive at and stay in. It started feeling like alignment. Not something you find once, but something you adjust toward over time. In this podcast, this doesn't feel like content to me. It feels like direction. Breaking down mindsets, talking about growth, digging into psychology. These aren't just topics. These are questions I'm living through in real time. Trying to break old habits, trying to build something meaningful, trying to become more intentional with how I move. And I don't have everything figured out. Not even close. But I do know this. I feel engaged again. And that matters more than perfection ever will. Because when you're engaged, you're present. And when you're present, you're growing. And that's what I want my life to reflect. Not just results, not just progress on paper, but real alignment. The kind my son can look at one day and recognize. Not because I told him what to do, but because he saw what it looked like to keep becoming. Not perfect, but intentional and moving toward purpose. The fight he wanted. Then comes Boros, a cosmic warrior who's been searching the universe for one thing: the fade. A real challenge. Someone strong enough to push him. Someone who could finally make him feel alive again. Saitama finally gets his fight. The one he's been missing. The battle? Massive. World shaking. Explosions tearing through the sky. The kind of fight that should mean something. The kind of fight that should wake something up inside him. And Boros? He feels it. He's engaged. Excited. Pushed to his limits. For him, this is everything he's been searching for. But Saitama, still calm, still controlled, still untouched, even here. Nothing changes. And that's when the truth hits. Not just for Boros, but for us watching. Even the greatest external challenge can't fix an internal emptiness. Because the issue was never about finding the right opponent. It was never about needing a bigger goal. It was about what he lost along the way. And that's a hard reality to sit with, because it means you can't solve certain feelings by doing more, achieving more, stacking bigger wins. At some point, you have to face yourself. Not the version of you that performs, not the version of you that produces results, but the version of you that sits in silence and has to answer the question, why doesn't this feel like it should? And that's the part people avoid, because it's easier to stay busy. That it is, to be honest. But that's where the real work is. Not outside. Inside. This is your Talk-NoJutsu challenge, and it's simple. Practice Ikigai. Ikigai is your reason for being. Not something you just find once or something you just practice. Again, it sits at the intersection of four things: what you love, what you're good at, what people need, and what actually fulfills you. When those align, life feels meaningful. When they don't, you start to feel that quiet disconnection. That's the depression nobody talks about. Not falling apart, just feeling off, while everything still works. So here's the challenge. Be honest with yourself. Which of these four areas is missing right now? Is it something you love? Are you good at what you're doing? Does it actually help people? Or does it just not fulfill you anymore? Don't overthink it. You already know the answer. Now here's the real work. What's one small shift you can make this week to move back toward alignment? Not a life overhaul, not some dramatic change, just one move. Because Ikigai isn't built in big moments. It's built in small, consistent corrections. And sometimes strength isn't pushing harder. It's admitting something is off and choosing not to ignore it. So this week, pay attention. Where do you feel engaged? Where do you feel disconnected? And start adjusting. Not perfectly, intentionally. That's how you reconnect to your life. That's how you build something that actually feels like yours. On purpose.